Welcome to the Kentucky Bourbon Traveler. Today we're stopping by Wilderness Trail, one of the new great Kentucky bourbon craft trail distilleries. We're also profiling a sweet new weeder, Wilderness Trail Single Barrel, Bottle and Bond 100 proof Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Christiana's going to be giving us a recipe cooking with bourbon, making Filet Mignon with bourbon cream sauce. Hi, I'm Kent. Welcome back to Louisville, Kentucky. Thanks for joining us. Today we're heading an hour and a half southeast of Louisville to Danville, Kentucky. Never heard of Danville? Us either. Danville's the home of Wilderness Trail Distillery in central Kentucky. Here's historic downtown Danville's Main Street storefronts. Much like most Kentucky's small towns that go back hundreds of years. Danville's claim to fame is being next to the largest Kentucky Civil War 1862 battlefield, Perryville, where the Civil War armies met and fought over Kentucky. Civil War fans dress up every year and reenact this battle. If you want cows or horse breeding services, and now great bourbon, stop by Danville. Wilderness Trail opened their doors in 2012 and is a member of the Kentucky Bourbon Craft Tour. And in 2019 will be a member of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. Wilderness Trail released its first bourbon in April 2018, deciding to release a 4-year-old bottled and bond bourbon rather than going with the majority of the new Kentucky distilleries releasing 2-year-old younger bourbon and a lot of unaged spirits first to pay the bills. The two owners, Shane Baker, who's the master distiller, and Dr. Pat Heist were friends in a rock band together in the 1990s. Since then, they've gotten degrees in microbiology and chemical engineering and started a lab services company, Firm Solutions, which is located right in the distillery for identifying yeast, bacteria, and contaminants for other companies in the distilling and primarily alcohol fuel industries. High enough proof alcohol, ethanol, runs our cars too. I think when you try this one, you'll agree science seems to help make good bourbon. Science is a huge component in making Wilderness Trail spirits. With their lab services facility, they have the ability to test the yeast and even the components of the grain in the lab. Most Kentucky distilleries use a sour mash method of making whiskey, where they use a little of the old batch in their next batch. Wilderness Trail uses a different sweet mash technique, starting every batch fresh by putting in new yeast. When they're done, they remove all the old mash, and then they use steam to clean the mash tubs and kill all the yeast that might be there. Since few of us have the science degree to understand what gelatization of starch without derogation means, in a nutshell, exact heat from the use of steam from a boiler breaks out the starches in the grain without damaging the grain's flavor. The column stills at Wilderness Trail use steam injection through the pipes into the column stills, which brings more of the cooked mash grain while they're distilling. They use local ingredients, corn, wheat, and rye, contracted from local Boyle County farmers. Barley they use comes from Wisconsin because Kentucky's climate is not cool and dry enough to grow barley. They can ask and check their grain ingredients locally from guys they know who have a stake in the quality of the other grains. The community and the finished bourbon on top of it. Making Wilderness Trail products is a community partnership, and I'm sure the small community appreciates a couple of local guys who have done well. The local cows, I'll bet, also like the used grain or spent grain too from the distilling process too. Bet that's a good steak. Their rick houses are traditional multi-story type. We're told they don't rotate barrels or use climate control in them. With the science of steam heating warehouses to climate control the rick houses or warehouses around, well, since E.H. Taylor hundreds of years ago, I think these two scientists would play with that too, if not eventually. They also rent aging barrel space in these rick houses to other talented true artisan distilleries like Lexington, Kentucky's bluegrass distillers, so they can put out more high quality bourbon for us all. Today we're profiling the recent release of WildernessTrail single barrel bottled in bond bourbon, 100 proof. It uses wheat in place of the usual rye with corn and barley. This brand is aged 4 years. This 100 proof is a surprising wheated bourbon. I picked this one up at the Danville Distillery for $53, which is a new distillery premium price for a bottled in bond. This single barrel bourbon is not a blend. It's bottled straight out of the barrel at the distillery. This single barrel has no chill filtration, which keeps the flavor, but also allows a slight cloudiness in the bottle, like all of them. Well done wheat whiskeys tend to be sweet, and this is definitely the case with this one. WildernessTrail has a surprisingly light, oily mouth feel, which seems unusual for a 4-year-old bourbon. The smell's wonderful. Corn and butterscotch and caramel, which continues on the palate and is well balanced and leans towards the sweet side. This bourbon has a buttery finish with a touch of spice and little burn or Kentucky hug. It does have a little astringency after the finish. The grain ingredients or mash bill come from Boyle County, Kentucky. It's 64% local Caverndale farm seed yellow corn, 24% wheat, and as many use the 12% Wisconsin malted barley I mentioned earlier. The oak barrels it ages in are charred number 4 American white oak barrels. In addition to being widely distributed in Kentucky, it's available through their distributor in Washington, D.C. My understanding it gets out to Delaware, Maryland, Michigan, Virginia, Illinois, Tennessee, and Georgia, and can also be gotten in other states through that distributor. Well, next up, Christiane has a wonderful recipe, cooking with bourbon, of course, making Filet Mignon with a bourbon cream sauce.
Hello, I'm Christiane, originally from Würzburg, Germany, and today we're cooking a full course meal. We are not going to make bonbons and work with chocolate, and we're going to make filet mignons with a bourbon cream sauce, which you will need, of course, bourbon, heavy cream, garlic and some sage leaves. I grow them fresh, but you can also use dried sage, salt and pepper, and mushrooms. Now we're beginning to make the sauce. I melted some butter and I'm going to add the mushrooms and saute the mushrooms for about 5 minutes. So after we saute the mushrooms, I put them aside in a separate bowl. We're going to saute the garlic and the sage. Saute that about for another 5 minutes. Add slowly the heavy cream and use a whisk to stir it around. And when the heavy cream is still cold, you want to add the bourbon. And then the salt and pepper. And cook that on low for about 5 minutes till it gets warm, and then you add the mushroom back into the gravy and set it aside. Now we're going to sear the filet mignons in some olive oil. We're going to sear it on both sides, and then we're going to transfer it into a oven-safe plate and bake the filet mignons for about 20 minutes on 375. After we seared the filet mignons, I put it in an oven-safe plate and we put it in the oven on 375 for about 20 minutes. And now after we did our filet mignon in the oven, I have a wonderful meal with the filet mignon and the bourbon sauce. I decided to have fresh zucchini baked and a sweet potato on the side. Enjoy.
Kentucky Bourbon Traveler.